everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Debbie and I'm on the creative design team at Sizzix. And how much do you love a die set that even though it's called Winter Wishes or Summer Fun, that you can use it all year round? Doesn't matter what it says because there might be a couple elements in that die set that you know that you can use for any future projects, whether at that time of the year or not. An example I'm going to be using today is the Winter Wishes die set. It has 15 individual framelets, one framelit, and then multiple thinlets in it. You have foliage, you have snowflakes, you have flowers, you have centers of the flowers, 15 individual dies, plus the Winter Wishes sentiment. Now, like I said, even though it says Winter Wishes in it, there's all sorts of things that you can do with it. And I'm going to walk you through a couple projects and share with you some techniques, because we all know how to die cut, but you might not know some of the other things that you can do with all of our different making essentials and different products that you can use just to bring a little more life to your projects with just one particular die set. One of the projects I'm going to share with you today is using the Sunnyside Sentiments number 5, just the word thankful. It's on the rubber stamp that says thankful for you, but I just cut off the for you part and just put the word thankful. And then I use the same flowers that are in the die set, kind of paired it up with one of our shaker panes, and you see all the little fun little sequins of beads inside that coordinate with it. But just imagine what it would look like if you change the flowers to depending on the season. So whether you're using summer or winter or spring or fall, the look of it is completely different. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera overhead so you can see all the different things that you can do with it, just some little insight and some fun techniques that I think you'll enjoy. So the Winter Wishes die set, like I said, has 15 individual thinlets in it. One of the framelets is this wreath. It kind of has a twiggy effect to it. So if you pair it up with multiple die cuts out of the same shape using the same die, you can just make your wreath a little bit more substantial. So whether you add the embellishments to the wreath using the snowflakes or the flowers, I'm going to show you a couple different techniques using those individual pieces as well as having them all put together onto one project. So I'm going to start with the shaker paint card that I had done. It has a sequence of beads, and I doubled up on the actual frame itself, the little wreath itself, just to make it a little more substantial. With the little tiny flower centers that are part of your die set, they're so tiny, but I thought it's kind of fun if you add them to your project. Now, this is how tiny it is. It has 8 individual little circles that will go inside of the flowers themselves. You could use the stars inside of the flowers, or you can just use a bead. But what I did is I just kind of sprinkled a couple with our adhesive sheets on the back just to adhere it down. And then I also put a couple on the inside of the card just so, you know, when the sequins are moving around and they kind of settle to the bottom, you'll be able to see that there's a couple still left on top. So it looks like the sequins and the beads are still kind of moving around on the inside. So to save a little time, I've already created a part of the card itself. I have the fold at the top. Obviously, you can do whatever you want with it. I've also pre-cut the flowers and pre-assembled them ready to go. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how I do the actual sequins and beads using the shaker panes. So this is already laid out and ready to go. So if you're familiar with our shaker panes, they have the double adhesive on one on each side. And this is a ring that just peels right off. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to lay it right down there in the center or wherever you want it to be. But for my particular card, it's going to be in the center. So that is all set and ready to go. So that's all done. Now I'm going to take my sequins and beads. So I've already chosen the ones I want. Some are from the festive collection of the sequin and bead set. So it has little iridescent white snowflakes. I have some of the raspberry fizz stars, and then some of the other colors. This is some of the other colors of part of our color story that we have. So they all coordinate with our papers and other products that we have, so you know that the tones will all blend together. So I'm just going to use my funnel tray. I've already kind of mixed them all together, and I'm going to just kind of guide them down to the funnel itself. And then opened up the little funnel piece here, the little cap, and then I'm going to pour it right on the inside. And the cleanup is going to be easy peasy because they're all in there, and I'll just kind of dust that off, and that's ready to go. So they're all set. So as I was saying before, if you can see those little ones, the little flower centers that I had put down in there, it kind of looks like there's still some of the confetti included. So also with your shaker panes, you have the additional acrylic piece that lays right there on top. So we have a little protective shield because in shipping and packaging, you don't, and moving around, you don't want it to scratch up the actual acetate piece that you have. So we have this protective shield. Now there's one on each side, so make sure you peel it off. And just for future reference, the good thing about that is it's also print. You can rubber stamp on it. Sorry, not printable. You can rubber stamp on it. So I'm just going to use my die pick and just peel that up. And this will fit perfectly. It comes with your shaker pane, so you get 3 individual sizes. I have the larger one, and each one has its matching coordinated size, and I'm just going to lay that on there. It'll match perfectly. Oop, I guess it would help if I peeled this off, right? Let me peel off this adhesive, otherwise those little sequins of beads will go flying. Okay, so ready to go. Adhere this down. It'll match up perfectly, exact same size. Just bear down on the edges so you know that those sequins of beads won't go flying, and whoever receives this won't be angry with you because of the mess they're going to have to clean up. But at least it would be a pretty mess. So those are already shaken and shaken. So what I've also done is we have our circle frames. The circle frames are a die set, and each of the frames coordinate with the actual shaker pane itself, whether you're using the square, the heart, or the circle. They all have the ring that will go on top. And the part that will come on the inside, you can lay it on the inside if you want to have a contrasting color. I wanted the backing of my shaker pane to be the same color as the card, so I just adhered it right down there on the back. So I also added an adhesive sheet on here, especially for something intricate. You don't want to have to fuss with a wet glue. Same with these tiny pieces. It really helped a lot with the adhesive sheet because I could just peel it off. Steady, but it worked. So this is going to match up perfectly. I'm just going to lay it down there on the ring. And there, that's ready to go. So now I'm just going to start assembling my wreath itself. So another great idea for the adhesive sheets, like I said, is something intricate like this. You could use a wet glue and a sponge, but this is already a sticker. You adhere the adhesive sheet on the back of the wrong side of your cardstock, adhere it down, and then peel it off. And once you die cut it, it's a sticker ready to go. It's perfect for really thin, intricate, narrow sentiment stickers, sentiment die cuts like anniversary, congratulations, any of those really narrow die cuts. You want to make sure that it's ready to go. So if you use an adhesive sheet on the back, it's going to be the perfect embellishment because it's ready to go and it's a sticker already. So like I said, I wanted to double this up just to give it a little more of a substantial type frame on the little wreath itself. Now I don't want to match it up exactly because you won't really be able to tell the difference of it. So I'm just going to have it offset a little bit from the one I already laid down. I like the way that looks, so it's going to adhere right on top of the one on top of that. And the reason I put this framelit circle around it is just, I could have done it in white, I could have left it be, but if I left it be, you would see the edge of that shaker pane, and I kind of wanted to cover it. So that's what I did there. I covered it with one of our opulent cardstock colors, the pearl finish. So now I'm just going to start just kind of decorating my wreath. So I have some of these already pre-cut, all my leaves and everything. Some of them, what I love about die cutting is I like to have a bunch of things already cut, because when I'm making cards, there's so many that I have that are off to the side that I decide that's not the color that I want. And when I go ahead and I don't want to toss it, I'm able to keep it and then be able to use it for future things. So kind of keep them all off to the side, assort them by flowers, by theme. Sometimes, a lot of times I'll sort mine according to what it is. So say it's a star or a cloud. I have a celestial collection of die cuts that are ready to go. And what I like to do is just keep them all together. So it depends on the card that I'm doing. It's perfect because I can just go ahead and have it ready to go, especially if I'm in a bind on the way to the party and I forgot to make them a card. I've got all sorts of stuff that I can start creating. So I'm just going to add a little of my express glue on there, on the tip of one. Some of these I already had adhesive sheets. That's what I was going to say. So I already had an adhesive sheet on there, but I don't want the whole leaf to adhere down to here when it's being mailed or tossed around when it's given to the person that's receiving it. So I'm just going to peel off the backing just on the base of it. So that way it's not going to be stuck in places I don't want it to stick. And I'm just going to put this one down here. It's just however you want it to be. Change up the colors, make them fall colors. I'll show you a project that I did with the same die set with fall colors, and I love the way it turned out. Actually, I believe I did this one in with an adhesive sheet. So that one is ready to adhere down. And I just use the center. So on the die set, when you cut this flower, oops, it comes with this little small one. So you're gonna get two of the same color. But like I said, you cut multiples, then you're gonna use it as a contrast. So since I cut this flower out of the glitter cardstock, I am able to also cut this because it cut at the same time. And then I use those little tiny pieces for the center of that tiny little flower center. So I'm gonna peel this off. I believe this one also has an adhesive sheet on it. Sometimes if you put a glue on the back of something that doesn't have an adhesive sheet, it just rolls right off. But I believe this one, no, I did not, did I? No, there's no adhesive sheet on the back. It's hard to tell on the opulent because it's white on one side. So I'm gonna start embellishing this side of the wreath. I like to have, I mean, it's up to you, obviously. You could do it all the way around. You could just do a cluster at the bottom, but I kind of like to have it just kind of, you know, on the top right and the top bottom. But it's so much fun. And you don't even have to, it doesn't have to be a shaker pane. You could do this die set for anything and just have the wreath itself. And that's one of the projects you'll see that I'll show you in a little bit of the different ways that you can use this die set. It doesn't only have to be a shaker pane. And just kind of put these wherever you want them to be. You're the artist, you do you, right? And like changing it up, whether it's going to be on a place card, you could do, I'm going to show you how you can layer it up to make it a little heavier, so it could be something that maybe you decide to hang as an ornament without a card base. It's makes for really, really fun projects that whoever receives it would absolutely love it. Whether it's home decor, do something pretty like this, and you could just have it framed and change it up by the seasons. That's a fun little thing to do. So let me just do one more. Another one that I like to do is I just kind of want to tuck one underneath the back side of it. So I'm going to position this pearl opulent one on the top of this one. And then I'm going to add another one of these little centers here. And then I will add one more flower center. So if you could see how tiny these are, you just got to really have a good eye. And with my eyes, I got to have my glasses on. And then I already have the adhesive backing on here. I hope I got it off. Oop, no, I did not. Try that one more time. Even with my glasses on, I was still not able to get it off. Just get that die pick right behind it. Maybe there isn't any on there because it usually doesn't take me this long. So I'm just going to put a little tiny dot of glue. Actually, let me use my die pick to add a little bit on there. And then I will position this little center right there on top, if I can get it off of my sticky finger. Okay, so I want to tuck this one underneath. And since this is shaker paint is kind of restricting my area and I don't want it to hang off the actual card, I'm going to trim off this part here. That way it'll be flush right up against. And if I didn't trim off enough, oops, and then the little center came off again. Another dab of glue. Maybe that I didn't put enough on there the first time. There. So let me put a little bit of glue on the back side of this. Actually, once again, I believe I have an adhesive sheet on the back. See, we all make our little mistakes. Not one not a mistake, I just forgot. So peel that off. Put that center back on. That little guy's not going to want to stay. I'm going to make him stay. And then I'm just going to tuck it in just so it's off a little bit, but then you could still see the petals. And there we have it. Let me add my word thankful. So this is the Sunnyside Sentiments number 5. I use the thankful for you, and I just stamped the entire area, but then trimmed off the for you part. Another thing you could do is you could cover this with your maker's tape, stamp it, cover this with your maker's tape, add the ink, peel off the maker's tape, and then stick it down. Because if the maker's tape has this ink on it, you're going to press that down. It's going to accidentally give you the smudge of the ink on your maker's tape. So easiest way to do it, stamp out the whole thing and then cut off the For You part. And like I said, you can use the For You another time because you're always going to have something to give to somebody that says For You, correct? So I'm going to take my double-sided adhesive tape and just run a little strip on the back of there. Tuck that underneath. Now I want to tuck it underneath some of the leaves because I don't like to see the edge of something. I don't want it like that. I like to hide that so it looks like it's coming off. So I'm just going to hide it partially underneath that whole cluster of flower fun and stick it down. Kind of hide it behind that leaf because I don't want that to be seen. And there we go. And that's a fun way of using the Winter Wishes without the word Winter Wishes. So this is a great thank you card. This doesn't look like a poinsettia. It doesn't have to be a poinsettia. It could be if you add a little veins with your paper sculpting kit with your tool. Veins to that, change the colors up and make them poinsettias. But this looks like a beautiful spring, birthday, anniversary, thank you for having us for dinner, anything. It's a great card and it could be seasonal. Change up the colors and look what you've done. How fun is that? So that is the Winter Wishes using a shaker pane. Then let me just scoot all of this aside and just show you another project and just walk you through a couple things that I like to do. So this is one that I use using Tim's Funky Foliage. So this is using the same wreath, but using it as cardstock. If I wanted to have it be a little more sturdy and substantial, I wanted to have it a little thicker. And since you can't use mat board to cut a thinlet or a framelit, I'm going to layer it up a bunch of times. So this is like 6 layers of, if you can see, I kind of had white in there too because our white cardstock is very thick and heavy. So that's what I did here. Inked up some of the foliage and that gives a great, great substantial, sturdy ornament. So you can hang it on a door. You can hang it off of a gift bag. How fun is that? Great for any kind of festive fall decor that you're going to do. Hang it off of some doorknobs, whatever. I love it. I think it's so pretty. So this is using about 2 of them. And I'm just going to show you how you just layer it up. I mean, it's kind of obvious. I think you guys, you're clever. You could figure it out. But you just match it up exactly. I mean, you don't have to, but just to keep it steady, I mean, keep it sturdy, you can just go ahead and adhere it in the exact same spot as it is on your one that you laid down just before that. So as you completely go around it, oops, clearly that was not the right side to match it up. There we go. So just keep going, go all the way around and have an adhesive sheet or any kind of whatever your preference of glue is. But I see it just makes it so much easier and you just kind of guide it along and turn it as you go. And since you die cut it with the same exact die, you know it's going to match up exactly. And you just keep going and going and going and all the way around. Add a little piece of twine and just makes it nice, thick, and sturdy. So as many layers as you want. If you want to do it on the opposite side, you can and just build it that way, but it doesn't matter because it's almost like cardboard and it's about 6 or 7, 8 layers. It's up to you. So I love the way that turned out. That's a lot of fun to do that one that way. And I'm going to show you really quickly another technique. This is just using the snowflakes, but I created a stencil out of it. So I created a stencil. And then I inked up the, created a stencil, wiped our crystal paste effects range with a palette knife over it. And once it dried, inked it up and added a few of the die cut embellishments on top. So let me show you how that one turned out or how that one works. You can see how it turned out. So here is my multimedia mat. Here's a stencil that I have. So what I did is I just took a random piece of cardstock of our heavy, smooth white cardstock, and I just cut multiple times out of all the sizes. Now, all of these are included in your Winter Wishes die set. So you just kind of place them wherever you want them to be, just to create a stencil. I like to have the stencil larger than what I need it to be, just so I can just decide where I want everything to be placed. So say I want it to be placed, I like some of it to be offset. So I want it to be hanging off of the actual tag itself. So I'm going to use my maker's tape. Let me find the end of it. Because I don't want it to shift around, especially when I'm using a paste. And make sure all of my areas are down flat. So the crystal paste is from our effects range. There's glitter in it. And I love the way it turns out when it's applied to something and once it dries. It gives a really nice dimension. You just want to stir it up because you don't want anything to be uneven, or not the texture, the consistency not to be even. So you want it to be nice and smooth, kind of like peanut butter with a little glitter in it. So wherever my tag is, so I don't have any tag off there. I know that these are the edges. So I'm just going to start here. And I'm just going to do it. And you want to work a little quickly with the paste because once it dries, you want it to be the same. I like it to be the same thickness and heaviness of the area next to it. So, I mean, it's up to you. It can be thicker or thinner on one side than it is on the other. But you just want it to be pretty consistent, and you want to move a little quicker. And this one I just have a little bit before it goes off the side of the tag. You hear the crunchiness of the glitter? Sounds very festive. And with the paint, you want to go ahead and you want to rinse these or wipe these really quickly after you're done, just because you don't want it to dry up quickly on your palette knife. And it'll wipe off and rinse off beautifully off of your multimedia mat. So when you use any of our effects, be sure you keep this little plugged lid, snap it back down because you don't want it to dry out. And as you can see, I barely had to use any. And now I'm going to lift up my maker's tape. And I'm going to peel this up carefully. And there we have it. See how it stayed on there? I could scrape it off, but since this is paper, I wouldn't worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead and toss it. And look how fun that turned off. Look how fun that turned out. So you could do, once you do that, you can ink it up. I don't know if it'll dry while I show you the rest of the projects, but this is just something you could do. I would just ink up. I took the Tim's Distress ink, the tumbled glass color, and then I just did a little bit of color on the snowflakes. I guess I could put it on it while it's wet just to give you the idea. It should stick, actually. This one's already done a little bit, so I just put a smaller snowflake on the medium size crystal paste snowflake, just to give you an idea of how it would turn out. And how about if I do one that's a little bit larger? That would be fun. So they're, just like a snowflake. No two tags are alike. So even though this one's not going to match exactly to the one I showed you, it gives you the idea of how different they could be. You could just also add a little bit of the crystal onto these as well. Tap that down there. And let me do one more tiny one on the one at the top. So as long as I'm not touching it, I could still ink the edges. And once it's all dry, if you want, you can add ink to the actual snowflake themselves. So I could do a little bit of glue, add one actual die cut of the snowflake onto there, a little bit more glue, and add it to that one. And see how fun that all comes together with a little bit of twine and a little more ink. This would be a great tag to hang off of anybody's gift that you're bringing to a hostess. Anything you want. You could do this on the front of a card. It just gives a nice little look. And this is something that brings this Winter Wishes die set to a whole nother look. So that's that technique, using them as a stencil. Now you just use the negative, like I said. You just lay it out and you go ahead and use that as a negative. And then there's one more technique that I want to share with you, and then I'll show you a couple more of my projects. So one of the techniques is an embossing. Now that is using the snowflake also, but using our emboss and transfer set, I'm running it through the machine with the silicone rubber and the impressions pad. And then I used our holiday gift box and then used our luster wax and just rubbed a very little bit onto that, and that gives a great little look. So let me show you very quickly how that all comes together. This one I do need my Big Shot machine, or you could use your switch. It's a little too big to use and then the silicone rubber, you wouldn't be able to use this on your Sidekick. So using the emboss and transfer set, you have an impressions pad and silicone rubber. It shows you exactly how you need to build it on your actual platform here. So it shows you the platform. Then you need your cutting pad, then blade up. Then what I need to do is I'm going to mist my cardstock with a little bit of water. I'm just doing it off camera so I don't get everything wet. And that softens the fibers of my paper so it's not going to cut through. So blade up, then your material. Make sure it's all centered, as centered as it could be, I should say. And since it's a little damp, it'll just kind of stay put. Then I'm just going to lightly place down the silicone rubber. Make sure that didn't shift. And that just kind of softens the blow a bit. Lay that down. And then you're not going to use a cutting pad. You are going to be using the impressions pad. And it comes with the emboss and transfer set, those two pieces, the silicone rubber and the impressions pad. And you're going to run it through. And you don't hear any clicking because it's not cutting and your paper is damp. So that is what gives a great, beautiful technique. And see how great that turned out? You're going to take the die off. So you could use the deboss side or you could use the emboss side. Now it shifted a little bit, so I would normally move this up a little bit, but with the luster wax, I would just need a little tiny bit. I'm going to put it on this so it doesn't get all under my fingernail. And then you're just going to add a little bit to that. And you can see how the contrast really starts to show up. And it depends on how heavy you want it to be in different areas. So how beautiful is that? Fold it on the score line. And it gives a beautiful technique. And here it is without the luster wax on it. So white on white or completely, not completely, but lightly covered with the luster wax. That just turns out so pretty. And the contrast is so nice when you use the luster wax, whether you use rose gold, silver, or or nothing at all. And lastly, I just want to show you a couple really quick, same idea, but a few little different techniques with the same, sorry, not same idea, same die set. So I did the same thing as I did for this one, but I did it on a card for my Thanksgiving invitations. Yes, I do send out Thanksgiving invitations just because I love that holiday and I love to eat and I love to cook. So here it is, using the Thanksgiving sentiment with the adhesive sheet on the back, the funky foliage, and just one of the wreaths. And I love how that turned out. Same wreath, sprinkled with a little mist of our kind of watered down white acrylic paint, and just spritzed it, flecked it with either a brush or diluted water, and just misted that on there. You could use silver, you could use white. I used the silver opulent for the wreath, and then silver and white with some jewels on the inside for the snowflakes. I love the contrast there. And here is a fully Christmas looking winter wreath project. Same idea, but using the Winter Wishes, the sentiment that comes with it. I cut it out of silver and red with the adhesive backing, and I just kind of used the silver as a shadow and shifted the red Winter Wishes off to the side a little bit. Using the same flowers, different color leaves, but the difference, the contrast is so different. It just makes it so much more festive and holiday-ish depending on what you're using. I mean, how beautiful would that be for a wedding if you did it in whites and golds? And I believe that is all the fun I wanted to share with you. I hope you've been inspired, and we look forward to seeing any of the projects that you would come up with. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. This was something that I just absolutely love. It was one of my favorite releases in Chapter 4, and it was so much fun to come up with all these different techniques. I hope you're as excited to play with your Winter Wishes die set as I was creating projects for you. Whether you're going to be making a tag with a contrast in black and silver and white, or whatever colors you choose, or an ornament to hang on the door, whether it's fall, spring, or winter, or shaking it up a bit with a shaker pane. It's a great die set to have, and you're going to absolutely love it. So hurry up, get it, tag us, post it, and when you tag us, make sure you use My Sizzix Story. We look forward to hearing what you've created, seeing what you've created, and any comments, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.